Boehl became a quilter in 1984 when her passion was ignited by her mother-in-law, Laura Boehl. Shortly after starting her first quilt, Laura attended a lecture on quilting given by Pat Long Gardner, a Baltimore fiber artist and teacher of fiber art at the Maryland Institute of Art. Laura has always had a modern twist to her art. She especially enjoys piecing her backs, which became a canvas for artistic exploration. She uses all her leftovers from the front, plus extras from her stash, and pieces it all together in a random artistic improv fashion.
Hi, I'm Kathleen McCullough from the Fiber Arts Center of the Eastern Shore, and I'm here today in St. Michael's, Maryland with Laura Wagner Boehl, and we're going to learn from Laura all about her journey in modern quilting. How long have you lived on the Eastern Shore, and where did you come from before moving over here?
I came from Moncton, Maryland, northern Baltimore County. We've always had deep roots here on the Eastern Shore. My husband's family dates back to 1680 in Nevitt. So we always came here. But most of my life I've been in Baltimore or northern Baltimore County.
How did you get into quilting, and did you have any particular person that inspired you along the way?
Yes, I had quite a few, but it was my mother-in-law. It was in the mid '80s, and we were building a new house, and she had given me quilts from Nevitt, and I always loved to sew. And I sewed clothing and things like that when I was younger. And it just hit a chord for me. So she had given me the quilts from the Eastern Shore. And then I went to a women's club meeting and I heard Pat Long Gardner give a lecture about quilting. And she was a fiber artist that taught at the Maryland Institute of Art. And she had a group that met on Mondays and Wednesdays in Baltimore, or it was really in northern Baltimore County also. And it was just the right time for me, and it clicked. And that was in 1985. And I have to say, the women that I quilted with, Pat's group, also gave me confidence in things that I never thought that quilting would bring you. But they gave me confidence to pursue a career, to raise my children, to have a better marriage. I was probably one of the youngest, and they were all older and very wise. And, it was a wonderful experience for me.
What drew you to the modern quilting genre?
I had a lot of friends that were interior designers. When I first started quilting, probably about 5 years after I started quilting, people started coming to me to make them quilts, interior designers, my friends, and then I had a couple commission quilts that I did, and I always had a different sense of color and design. And here again, the women that I quilted with were a very diverse socioeconomic group. They were women that traveled the world. They didn't use quilting calicos or quilting cottons. I was introduced to Liberty of London's and fabrics from Africa and Indian fabrics and madrasses and just wovens that I knew nothing about. And then they took me to G Street Fabrics. Well, that was another thing. That was like rising, to fabric heaven. I learned to quilt in the Maryland State Fair. This was way, way, way back, probably early 90s. And I got third, but I got a comment, "You have a very interesting sense of color and fabric use." And that's what did it.
Yeah.
with modern quilting, you can take it all builds on traditional quilting. But what I think is new and fresh, at least this is what made me really want to explore modern quilting more, was that it's so fresh. And the young women had a different sense of what was important in their quilts, which was the utilitarian side of a quilt. Is that you do a quilt for the beauty, yes, but you do it to use it. And the comfort that it brings somebody.
How long does it take an idea for a quilt to get from your brain to the fabric? Do you just does it flow out on a sketch, or do you play with the fabric on these awesome sticky boards? I mean, how does it go from in here?
It depends.
Yeah.
It really depends. I'll get into a little bit about the quilt that I'm doing now.
Okay.
That literally, I woke up in the middle of the night before my great nephew was born, and I feel like I was being guided by his grandfather, who passed away in 2007 of MS, and that thing has just poured out of me.
Wow.
And there are times when I can throw something on the wall and it just comes together. Then there are times that I'll look at it and I take it off and I fold it back up.
Do you fold it back up forever, usually, or do you?
Some things I do, other things I don't. I have another piece that I folded it up, and COVID really, I had a hard time with COVID, but COVID also was a little bit of a gift, because I went through things that I had forgotten that I had done.
Yeah.
And I finished them.
Oh,
and
nice.
I had a whole different perspective.
And we have learned, when you had your show in September at the Fiber Arts Center, it was brought to all of our attention to make sure you turn Laura's quilts over and look at the back, because you piece the backs as a further expression of the front of the quilt's art. And I wondered, how do you get the design for the back of the quilt? Does it just flow from what the front says, and then you take the scraps from the front of the quilt,
Yes.
and then you incorporate them into the piecing design on the back?
And my kids always say to me, the backs look better than, or they like the backs better than the front.
Right.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just happened.
And I took a lot of stills of Laura's studio and the quilts, and the piece that she was speaking about, the special piece, I have some beautiful stills of that, and I'll feature those later in the video. But as you look around the studio, you see many different beautiful tools of the trade, fantastic irons with their own little stand, and sewing machines that look like BMW probably engineered them.
You should have the best that you can afford, and I use my tools every day.
So, thanks for having us here today.
Well, thank you.
Love your home and your studio, and your work is it's breathtaking. It really is.
Thank you.